Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And today, not only do you have me, you have Michael with us. And so instead of screwing up Michael's bio, as I told him before we got on the call, I'm going to let Michael share his joy and share his bio with all you. So without further ado, I'm going to let Michael take it away.
Thank you, Wynn, and thanks for having me. Great to be with all your listeners. So my name is Michael O'Brien. My friends call me OB, which is short for O'Brien. And I'm the founder and president of Peloton Coaching and Consulting. And Peloton, not necessarily associated with Peloton cycles, but I coach executives. I coach leaders on how to lead better, build more trust, build a better culture, create better tomorrows. So I specifically work with our business leaders and their teams. Prior to starting Peloton, I was an executive in healthcare, and one of my passions was building leaders and helping leaders become better as they go forward. So this was always part of my vision as a young business leader, and now I get to live part of my dream. So that's what I do each and every day. And a Peloton, you in Colorado will know this, Wynn. So a Peloton is a group of cyclists. So it's my metaphor to a tribe or a network or a culture.
Yes, thank you for explaining that because I got it completely, but my East Coast listeners are thinking, okay, Wynn has lost her mind with Michael. What the heck is a Peloton? So thank you for explaining it. And yes, I'm used to it in a bicycle race, but I'm not used to it in a business sense. So Michael, I have a question for you. How does one lead with, let's say, a disability? How should one lead a company with a disability?
So I think that's a great question. So I'm a big believer in leading with a spirit of abundance. And I know you and I checked each other out. We found each other through Twitter. So you know part of my story, and my story is my last bad day in my cycling accident. And it was very easy for me to focus in on what I lost in that accident. But I had a pivotal moment where I decided that I'd focus in what I still had, and sort of that spirit of abundance. So I think leaders of all types, disabilities, without disabilities, the best way to lead is to lead with an attitude of abundance. What we have, what are our options, what are our possibilities, and that gives us the greatest amount of choice and the greatest amount of energy to create the results that we're looking for in life and to cascade a little bit more happiness in the world. And I think we all believe that we need a little bit more happiness. It would make the planet a lot better, that's for sure.
I believe that too. And so you're saying put yourself all in and lead with abundance. Don't lead with the woe is me attitude. Don't lead with a victim attitude. Oh, I can't make it. Oh, I can't make it. Just lead the best you can and lead with the attitude of, no pun intended, but winning.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go with the pun. I think that it's a beautiful pun. So I totally agree with you. I think it's so easy in life to get down on what we've lost and victim mentality. And that's not to say that we're going to have some tough days along the way. I think we have to own those as well. But the key is, how do you shift out of those to more of an attitude of going all in and leading with what tools that we have? I think that just puts us in a better position to create the success that we're looking to create.
Yes. And now with iPhones and all these good tools, you can lead a successful business from your iPhone. So.
Absolutely. The iPhone is probably my biggest technology tool that I use. So I'm a big fan of technology, but my phone is what helps me connect with all my clients and with people. And I'm a big believer that just like you connected with me, the thing that builds our culture, builds our networks, really goes back to the health of our relationships. And the health of our relationships are built through our conversations. So the iPhone, I think, is a particularly important tool because it helps us connect and have conversations with each other if we're not too busy just playing games on it. So.
No, and let's not play games on it, people. Let's not play Candy Crush. Let's try and make this world a better place. Thank you very much. And so, Michael, what is your favorite podcast, if you have one? And yes, you can be biased and say mine. I don't care, but I'm sure you have a business podcast or personal podcast that you want to give a shout out to.
Yeah, so when I heard this question, I was like, wow, this is a hard decision to make. I'm going to go with Krista Tippett's On Being because I love her podcast because of the spiritual nature of it. And I think I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I am a spiritual person. And I think it's a good one to listen to for any leadership because I think our energy is driven by our spirituality, our emotional health, the health of our relationships, and also our physical health. So I'm going to go with Krista Tippett's On Being as my favorite one, but I have a whole bunch that are in second place. And we could probably spend the whole conversation talking about all the other ones that I like.
Yes. I thought you were going to say John Lee Dumas of EO Fire or something. Nope, you came up with a unique one that now I have to subscribe to because I have not heard that one yet. And what is your favorite book? It doesn't have to be business related, but it just has to be a book that you turn to time and time again.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'm going to give you probably another curveball answer. So I'm a proud father of two very smart, wonderful girls, and I'm a big believer in female leadership because of them. And one of my favorite activities, they're now 16 and 19, but I loved reading to them at bed. And so any book that I read to them at bedtime was one of my favorites. So I'm going to give you Goodnight Moon as my favorite book because that was one of their favorites. And every time I think about that book, it puts a smile on my face. I think about those special moments right before bed. Now they're too big. They don't want me to read books to them anymore at bedtime.
Yep.
But I would say that's a book that probably it makes my heart the warmest. Certainly, my bookcases are filled with leadership books, but there's something about that bedtime story to my girls that is just so special.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew Goodnight Moon was going to be thrown in this podcast somehow, and that is a great book. And what it teaches is the moral values of childhood. It teaches Goodnight Moon, Goodnight Mouse, Goodnight, and it all starts with Goodnight. And I believe that Goodnight Moon is still in print. I'm looking on my bookshelf right now. I don't have it, but I believe Goodnight Moon is still in print, you guys. And Goodnight Moon is just one of those classic books that everyone should get, even if they don't have kids. I mean, the artwork in that book is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
It so is, and I just love it. You know, when it's that time right before bed. You know, no matter what stress I had in corporate America before I opened my coaching firm when they were younger, the stress sort of floated away when I got to read them their bedtime stories. So those are moments that I will always cherish.
Those are moments that you will always cherish, and I highly think that you didn't fight educators. You worked with educators. I truly believe that, Michael, and I truly believe within your company. Now you're making great leaders to lead great companies.
Absolutely. And it's one of my things I love to do is to help them, find that next level and help them change lives. I do, the clients I work with provide service, provide products that makes the world a better place, changes lives. And if the leaders can find that extra gear, to pull out a cycling analogy, then they can change more lives when their peloton, if you will, their team at work is working more in sync with one another. It's one of the great things that I get to do each and every day. It brings a lot of joy and happiness to my professional life.
And so that being said, if you can divulge a little bit behind the scenes, what has been your favorite client success story that you have had?
Well, one of my favorites was a female leader who was struggling in her role. In fact, her company was thinking about potentially letting her go, and they hired me to be her coach. And we started in doing some, as I call it, inner work around values and mission and purpose. And she really got into the work. Coaching works when both the coach and the client go all in together. And she was amazing. She just worked so hard at looking at herself, looking in the mirror, and then starting to have better conversations with her colleagues. And she got promoted. It was one of the things that she wanted so badly. It was a goal of hers, and she moved from VP to senior VP. And I thought it was just a fascinating evolution for her, from one point where she was really struggling to the next point where she made it to that next level. And it really has to, the success sort of boils down to the amount of work and effort she put into it. I was there to guide her, to ask her questions, to help her as a coach, as a consultant, a mentor. But she put in the hard work, and I'm just so proud of her for being able to do that.
And let's just face facts here. Running a company, disabled or not, is the hardest thing you can do on a daily basis. I mean, running a company and starting your day at 7 a.m. and trying to record podcast interviews, disabled or not, is one of the hardest things on the planet. I am still a part-time 9 to 5 job, which I'm slowly walking away from. For those of you that don't know, I have been in education for 11 years, and I thought wrangling kids was easier than being a solo entrepreneur. But it turns out that being a solo entrepreneur is something I love. I get to be my own boss, as Michael well knows. I get to make my flexible schedule so I can just pull out of the office anytime I want and go look at the beach or go look in the beautiful woods of Colorado if I wanted to.
I totally right there with you, Wynn. I love the freedom being an entrepreneur provides, where I can wake up early and get a bike ride in, but some days I get my bike ride in during lunch. Sometimes it's later in the day, but the ownership of my calendar and really the ownership in terms of who I get to work with, right? So I get to choose my clients. My clients also choose me, but I can be selective, and that just makes for a really good partnership. And that's one of the things I just love about being an entrepreneur versus being in corporate America.
Yeah. And I told my job, I said, I can only do this one day a week. And people think it's because of my disability. Nope, it's because of where education is going, and it's because of my psyche. I am way too creative to be wrangling kids. 5 mornings a week. But that's another whole side story in itself. But I love the fact that I can be a solo entrepreneur. I only have to step into the office 1 day a week. And so, but I'm going to try and slowly but surely walk away from you guys. And when I do, I'll get my degree in journalism, fashion journalism to be exact. And so I'll be making this podcast even stronger and even bigger now in the next couple of years because I will now have the official training. But to get back to Michael's story, where, if you don't mind me asking, where were you in corporate America?
I was with a pharmaceutical company, and I was the vice president of sales and marketing. So it was a Japanese company, but it was based in the United States, in New Jersey.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but I have hemiplegia palsy, so I've been dealing with pharmaceuticals and insurance companies and all that good stuff for the past 29 years almost. It will be 30 years in June. And more power to you, Michael, for making my life a little bit easier. But now you decided to improve my life tenfold because of now the work you're doing.
Well, thank you for that. You're welcome. So I was lucky in my career in pharmaceuticals where we really worked on some innovations that didn't have great cures. And so I feel like we were really making a contribution to society. I know the industry, has its critics, and I hear them. But I do feel like the work I did with one particular company, we were really making a difference for people with Alzheimer's disease and epilepsy and metastatic breast cancer. So I felt the work that I did there was fulfilling, but for me, the most fulfilling work was to help leaders lead better because they're such a powerful cascading force that touches so many lives. And what happens at work sort of spills into your personal life. So I thought my greatest contribution to society was to share my story and help leaders lead better.
And if you don't mind me asking, why did you leave the pharmaceutical industry?
Oh, well, so that ties back into, as you know, my last bad day. So I'm talking to you and your audience here, lucky to be alive. So back in July of 2001, I was hit head on by a Ford Explorer when I was out on a bicycle training ride. And the car crossed the center line of the road, hit me head on, and I broke multiple bones in my body, and I lacerated my femoral artery of my left leg. And so if I was a little bit older or not in shape, I was told I probably would not have made it to the hospital. And when I was in the ICU, I was all drugged up. I don't remember any of this, but I kept on repeating a guy's name to my wife, and she asked me about it when I came out of the ICU. And it just so happened to be the first person I knew who was a professional coach. And in that moment, the seed was planted that one day I would become a professional coach myself, because I knew if I was mumbling David's name that he made a mark in some subconscious way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pay back how he was shaping my life. And so it took me 13 years. It was a lot of watering and fertilizer for that seed to sprout. But 13 years later, I decided to, follow my commitment that I made when I was recovering from my accident and my last bad day.
Well, isn't that fabulous? All I can say is cyclists and cars do not mix. I have a friend who I was lucky enough to do the Kona Ironman. You guys, I don't know if you know that, but I'm a Kona Ironman triathlete. And one of the reasons why I got in the Kona Ironman is because through Foundation that the Kona Ironman had set up share inspirational stories of why you want to do the Kona Ironman and all this stuff. So one of my a friend who did the Kona Ironman with me, she was on a training. No, her friend was on a training line, and they were planning to do the Kona Ironman together. And unfortunately, the friend got hit by a bus in LA. And now I don't know if you know the when you're out training for Kona, the week before you do Kona, they have these big yellow signs saying bicyclists on the road. And I swear that cars do not see that. I swear that cars, when I was out there in a vehicle, I swear that cars do not see that. So what would be your best advice coming from the bicyclist end to those of us who are training, let's say, for the Kona Ironman and are scared half to death of a vehicle hitting us? Let's be realistic here. I mean, bicyclists, vehicles don't mix.
No, they don't mix. It's an unfair fight, right? So the bicyclist is sort of like taking a pebble to a gunfight. It's definitely not a fair fight. I think my recommendation, obviously, I had to go through my own recovery and an emotional transition to get back on the bike and get back on the road, not only for myself, but my family too, because that was a life-altering event for me. It's changed me fundamentally. And so for cyclists, I would say, ride defensively, be visible with lights and clothing. But I would say to all my fellow cyclists and triathletes is, pay attention and honor the traffic and the road signs and the lights. And to my motorists out there, the people in the cars and the trucks and the other motorized vehicle, which I'm also part of that group too, is be mindful of a cyclist. That cyclist that you're passing is someone's mom, son,
someone's sister,
friend, brother,
someone's daughter.
Yeah, they're your neighbor, and they're not some nondescript person that's slowing you down. There's a human being on that bike, and if we all just slow down to honor each other, honor the fact that we're on the planet together, we're on this road together, and we both can coexist, and we can treat each other with kindness and respect. I think cars and cyclists and triathletes can share the road, but we're in this battle where we're sort of talking at one another and not talking with each other. And I think conversation is sort of the glue that makes everything happen. And I think we just need to have better conversations. That said, I think a cyclist can ride defensively, wear lights and visible clothing, and be smart about how they ride in traffic and obey the traffic signs and lights just like any car would.
Yeah. Well, that was eloquent, the way you said that. And coming from an injury perspective, I just wanted to hear your perspective on that, because probably your driver got so freaked out that he probably didn't help you. Or maybe he did, I don't know. Did he help you, or did she help you?
No, not really. So when I got hit by the SUV, I went right, I cracked a hole through the windshield, and so he had glass in his face. So he actually needed his own medical attention himself. So he really didn't help me at all. And the fact of the matter is he shouldn't have been driving. He had a revoked license. And unfortunately, these things happen all the time. And again, as we talked about in the beginning, I could be a victim of it, but I decided I would be defined by how I responded to it, not by what I lost. And unfortunately, the driver didn't do too much to help me. That's for certain.
That's for sure. 9 times out of 10 they don't. 9 times out of 10 they leave the victim to the side alone and have the bystanders help them. So where can people find you, and where can people get a hold of you? I know you're on Twitter, but where can people get a hold of you, and how can people hire you to be their coach?
Oh, well, so thank you for that. Yeah, I would love to be hired as someone's coach. That would be great. I always love helping people. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and of course, LinkedIn, which is the social media channel of all those business leaders out there. My website is www.pelotoncc.net. So it's PELOTONCC, so charles.net. And if people want to send me a text message, they can actually send a text message to 44222 and just type in shift tip. So it's SHIFTTIP, and that's one way they get my leadership tips each week. And so probably the first way we can start getting connected and getting to know each other.
Yeah. Twitter's, you guys, if you don't believe me, Twitter's one of those open-end conversations where Michael can jump in with a hashtag and then someone else can jump in. And so, yeah, Michael is gracious enough on Twitter, is responsive. And so, yeah, or you can go to its website, and we'll have its website information in the show notes. And before I let Michael go, I'm actually to let Michael turn the microphone on me and ask me 2 to 4 questions that he wants to ask me about anything.
That's so cool. I'm already going to be the interviewer, so this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the question I have, you've interviewed a whole bunch of wonderful people, very successful. What are the qualities that they all share that have led to their kindness, their success, and the fact that they're wonderful people?
Well, I'll answer this question as frankly as I can. They all share awesome leadership styles, and they all, they all have the openness to learn about cerebral palsy. And yes, I knew this question was coming because Michael smartly texted it to me when we were preparing for this interview. So I think that they all have amazing leadership skills in their own ways, and they're all high-powered CEOs, and they all have open and willingness to learn about cerebral palsy.
Very cool. Very cool. And so my next question is this. What's one thing that you believe in that others may not necessarily agree with?
I believe that people should follow their own path in life. And the reason why I say that is because we're all taught to be doctors, lawyers, and educators, but when it comes down to it, follow your heart and go into the unique career of journalism, which I'll be doing in the fall, and don't necessarily be the cookie cutter of the doctor, of the lawyer, of the business coach like you are, and don't necessarily carve out your own niche for yourself.
That's great advice. I love that advice. If I could, I'm going to borrow that advice when I talk to my leaders.
Well, you can, and just use my name and use this podcast. I mean, the more press I get about this podcast, the better off we'll all be. But that's my God honest advice: is don't be the cookie cutter of the bag of oils. Just be the unique pink oil in the bag of black and white oil.
Yeah, I know. I think it's so spot on in terms of that advice. And the energy that you put forth. I know we just met on Twitter, but the connection was immediate. That I was like, Wynn is a special person. So when you asked me to come on, I was like, absolutely. And it gave me an opportunity to learn a little bit more about cerebral palsy and about the Aspen challenge. And two, I just want to say this to all the listeners. If you haven't checked out the Aspen challenge, I would recommend that you do so. It's an awesome organization that Wynn supports. And I'm just so glad I found it. And the only way I found it really is through our interaction on Twitter. So I just wanted to thank you for that, Wynn.
Well, you're welcome. And correction, you guys, it's Challenge Aspen. And of course, all that information will be in the show notes. And I'm happy just to share some of the spotlights on my own personal life within this podcast. I mean, they do amazing work. I wish they did triathlons, but they don't. They do marathon races, though. I just got an email that, funny you should say this, Michael. I just got an email that I think they're running in some exotic place and the spots are still open. So you guys, if you are really into marathon running, Challenge Aspen is a great cause to support and run their marathon. I believe it's in July, and I just wanted to throw that out there to all you marathon runners that Challenge Aspen is a wonderful cause. They help not only cerebral palsy, but they help people with Downs. They help people with epilepsy. They help people with spina bifida. They help people with CP. They help people, you name it, they practically help them. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to go on my little tangent, but Michael brought it up.
I brought it up.
We have one of the top military programs in the country, Challenge Aspen Military Opportunities, CAMEL. So for those of you that are listening and thinking, I don't want to necessarily support the disabled, but I do want to support the veterans. Yes, we have that too, and yes, we have a play camp, and it's all funded by donations. And unfortunately, a great leader, Houston Cowan, is leaving Challenge Aspen. We haven't quite figured out who's going to replace the CEO, but I know they have an endowment fund, and I know they have all this great stuff going on. So, Michael, you got my tangent up. And
no problem.
I
think it's a
your
fantastic
support.
organization. Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate your support, and I hope you guys gained from Michael's experience. And I'm so happy that Michael came on and talked about his experience, not only in his personal life with bicycle accident, but now the incredible work he's doing out. And speaking of Twitter, this podcast is sponsored by Go Kitter, K-A-T-T-E-R. And unfortunately, it's not a mobile app yet, but as soon as it is, I will make announcements. And Go Kitter, K-I-T-T-E-R, sponsors this podcast, and what they do is you compose a tweet, they put the trending hashtag with it. So you guys can get seen on Twitter, and as you know, I'm a very active Twitter user, and so they sponsor this podcast, and we generously thank them for their support. And I appreciate Michael's story and Michael coming on and spending an hour with me, and then we'll see where this goes. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Wynn. though, Wynn?